Here we go. All right, well, I would like to, first of all, thank very much OPPD for having all these wonderful people here to join us. We're very interested to hear what you have to tell us on this interesting subject. And I would like to turn this over to one of the OPPD members, please, to introduce your group.
Well, thank you, Deb. We appreciate that. I am Russ Baker, and nice to meet everybody. I'm the Director of Environmental and Regulatory Affairs at Omaha Public Power District. Can everybody see the presentation slide? OPPD's decarbonization strategy, next steps and discussion.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, good. So with me today is some very important people from Omaha Public Power District. As I said, I'm the Director of Environmental Regulatory Affairs. I'll go through and introduce everybody who's participating on this presentation. The first one is Lisa Olson, who's the Vice President of our Public Affairs Business Unit. And then I thought maybe Lisa'd say hi as we get familiar with the controls here. I also have with us today Mary Fisher, who's our Vice President of Energy Production and Nuclear Decommissioning.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Welcome.
Hi, Mary. Also have off of my team, Emily Muth, who is our Environmental Sustainability Coordinator. She's been in this role for going on about 6 months now. And prior to that, she was the lead auditor for our environmental audits at OPPD, Emily Muth. Did Julie perchance join us? I didn't see her name show up. So Julie Comstock was
She's going to be joining us a little bit later for the Q&A session. So
okay.
She heads up customer service. She's Vice President of Customer Service. So if you have any questions on that side, we thought that we'd go straight to the source there. So
exactly. And then we also have our program manager for the entire decarbonization strategy, Mr. Jeremy Bowers, is online with us today.
Good afternoon. Happy Sunday.
Welcome.
Thank you, Jeremy. And then last and certainly not least, we've got our chairman of the board, Mr. Craig Moody, and we're honored to have him join us for the presentation today as well.
Thank you, Craig.
Hi, Craig. So without further ado, we will go ahead and get into our scheduled presentation. Okay. So as you can see, I was going to do the introductions, which I've now completed, and then we're going to get into the presentation, and that's going to be led by Lisa Olson and Mary Fisher are going to go through the presentation. We're going to talk to you about our environmental stewardship. Well, so let me just set the stage. First, we're going to talk about how far we've come in about the last 10 years, and it's a tremendous distance that we've covered over 10 years related to environmental stewardship. We're also going to talk about our strategic directives, our mission, our vision, and how all of those kind of factor into where we are right now at OPPD. We've got some pretty significant changes that we're looking at. Our first one's with a Power with Purpose addition of 500 megawatts, 400 to 600 megawatts of solar generation that will also have natural gas backup. We're currently in progress with that project, and that project ties very directly with our decarbonization efforts as well. So then we're going to talk about the decarbonization effort, where that came from, and then where we are right now as it relates to those efforts, and then we'll open it up for questions and feedback from the congregation. So thank you very much for inviting us today. We're very excited, and we'll get right into it. So as I said, and I kind of stole the thunder a little bit on this, looking back on our journey, our our Power with Purpose project, Pathways to Decarbonization. We're also going to talk about some of the stakeholder engagement as well, which is live as we speak, and you'll have access to, after this presentation, a lot of material that's out there, and then also, as I said, the question and answer period too. So setting the stage, how far we've come. Lisa, did you want to take these first set of slides before we kind of get into the Power with Purpose and lay the framework for where we've been and where we are now?
You're on mute, Lisa.
We can't hear you, Lisa.
Lisa, you're muted. There we go. As I always say with my team, they love sometimes when I'm muted because I talk a lot. So thank you for that, and thank you so much. We are so honored to be invited to participate in this, and for the First Central Congregational Church. We greatly appreciate the opportunity, and what I told your senior minister and Katie as well is we'd be more than happy to come back because we could talk forever about the things that your utility are doing. So, and which really leads right into this first one. A lot of people don't know that Omaha Public Power District and the state of Nebraska is all public power. You own us in terms of our participant. And so that's why stakeholder engagement is very, very important to us, and listening to what's on the minds of our customers and our communities that we serve. OPPD is in 13 counties, up north to Burke County and all the way down to the Kansas border, really on the east side of the state, but the entire state is really part of public power, and so that's really unusual. It was started in 1946, and I will tell you, my team does legislative, and I will say there's some senators that would like to kind of get rid of public power, and so we may need your help if that comes to any momentum and so forth, because an investor utility would not be having a Zoom on a Sunday afternoon with our customers. So thank you for that. Our next slide, Russ, please.
I am. There we go.
So as we said, you know, being public power, we have to balance quite a bit. And so our mission statement is to provide affordable, reliable, and environmentally sensitive energy customers to our services to our customers. And that's really important. And that's been our cornerstone of everything. Then we have 15 strategic directives that our board of directors have been actively involved in, and they're the ones that govern us. And Director Moody has been on the board. He was elected in 2016 and then started his service in January of 2017. In fact, I still have the picture of him sitting behind at the board meeting for the first time. And then in January, we were fortunate enough to have him be chair of our board, and got a great picture of he and his family and so forth. So he and Emily and the girls are a really important part of the OPPD family. So we thank him for his leadership. So these strategic directives are on OPPD.com, and we have each year we go through and we have monitoring reports to make sure that it's that we're guided by these and we are delivering on what we say we're gonna do. We're gonna get into a little bit of strategic directive number 7, environmental stewardship. In November, that was passed with a new goal, and it's net zero carbon by 2050, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But that one was really important, and the engagement was off the charts with many of our community leaders, including yourselves, and then of course our board. So, and then the last one bucket is that we have legal and regulatory obligations, because we have an obligation to serve everyone. As public power, no matter what, we serve, and we will serve our rural areas as well as our urban areas and so forth. So that's extremely important. So that's by state statute by the state of Nebraska. We're also part of the Southwest Power Pool that goes all the way up into Canada and all the way down into Texas in the middle portion of the United States and so forth. So we're part of that network as well. And then of course the United States federal government, we are regulated by FERC, which is the federal regulatory agency in that regard. So it's really important that we deliver on those. So I wanted to take you, next slide please. just quickly through our journey. For many of you, we live and breathe it every day, but I think that you'll be pleasantly surprised about how far we've come. You want to click on the next one, Russ? Because with this, and you'll be able to see this a little bit more because we've shared the presentation with you, but we set a goal in 2010 to set a 10% renewable goal by 2020. I will tell you, by 2019, we are nearly over 40% of renewable, and we're just really pleased how far we've come in the last 10 years, when our goal was really only 10%. So as you can tell, we've been very aggressive, but we've been very thoughtful in that. And one of the ways we've been thoughtful is we wanted to make sure that that energy was in the state of Nebraska. We didn't want it to be down in Texas. We didn't want it to be someplace else, but it was really important that we were able to help the economy in Nebraska and really be able to say that we are serving the state of Nebraska and our customers with renewable energy. And we'll talk a little bit more about that with Power with Purpose. And Mary Fisher, my colleague, will be talking through that because the board, and I'm not going to steal her punchline, her thunder on that, but they set a very aggressive goal and we're really excited about it because we made the recommendation and the board said, yeah, we're on board. So we're excited about that. So I'm just going to quickly go through this and the highlights of that. Our first one was, first wind farm was only 60 megawatts and now we're at nearly 1,000, started in December of 2010. You want to click next, Russ? Let's move on. And 2014, and while there was a lot during this journey, we joined the Southwest Power Pool energy market, and that's important because we're able to move our energy up and down into the region and so forth, so that others can participate and we can participate in energy that's available and so forth. So that was in March of 2014, and that was not an easy task, and it was important, and we did it without a blip. We had to make sure that the energy was there for you when you flipped on that switch and so forth. So then, like I said, we met our goal of 20% renewable in 6 years earlier. So we were rocking and rolling in that regard, but that wasn't good enough for us. We wanted to continue with that. The next one in the blue box to the south there is establish the Omaha Public Power Panel, and that's part of my organization. We have about 5,000 customers that voluntarily sign up to be part of our power panel, and they go on listening tours, and if we do surveys, and if they want to be part of a conversation and so forth. So we have about 5,000, and we continue to have that be representative of our entire customer base from 18-year-olds all the way up to our more seasoned customers as well. So we're really, really proud of that tool. And a lot of utilities do not have that. So that's truly helps us with the voice of the customer. And then in June 2014, we announced, we went through a resource generation process, and we made the announcement that we knew that we wanted to get our portfolio off of coal as much as we possibly could and still provide reliable service. So we announced that we were going to retire Omaha Station, our units 1, 2, and 3 would retire from coal in 2016. And I'm proud to say when we get to that, we met that, that commitment in that regard. And then by the end of 2023, units 4 and 5 at North Omaha will be converted to natural gas and taken off coal. So North Omaha will be completely off of coal at that time.
When? What's the date?
2023, by the end of 2023. Okay, next, Russ, because I want to go pretty quickly through this. As I said, in November 2015, we established the board strategic directives, and that's a really leadership behavior for an elected board of directors to do. So we greatly appreciate that the board was all in on that, and they continue to be highly engaged in that. You want to click on the next, please? So then I said, April 2016, we met that commitment that we retired units 1, 2, and 3 off of coal operations. So that is confirmed. And then I will say, I'm not going to go to the one to the south there, the Midwest Transmission Project, even though that was big because it really connected Fremont and some of the other areas for transmission. But I will tell you the one to the north there in Fort Calhoun ceased operations. I will tell you, being part of OPPD and coming from other companies, making that decision was probably one of the hardest, and I get emotional, and I know Mary, all of us do. We get emotional because that was a major decision because it impacted people's lives. And there were over 500 people that work at Fort Calhoun Station, but our head said one thing: we just couldn't sustain it. It was the smallest nuclear power station in the entire country, only 1 unit, and other units are 3, 4, 5, 6 units, and we just couldn't sustain it. So I said our head said one thing, but our heart said another. But I will tell you, I have never been more proud of an organization, and Chairman Moody can attest to this, because we did not take that lightly, and we've been able to retrain individuals if they wanted to be and stay with the Omaha Public Power District, because we are a family, and they've been very, very instrumental in keeping the power on in that regard. And if people wanted to stay in nuclear, Mary and the team was able to help find them to do that as well. And if people wanted to retire, then they could retire as well. So we did it right. And I'm just really, really proud of the organization and Mary and her leadership. So I just wanted to reiterate that. And then the other one in the blue right there was that during that time, we also made a commitment that we would not have a general rate increase for 5 years. And I'm proud to say that we've continued that commitment. And in 2020, as well, the board heard that we would not raise rates at all. So we've continued that commitment. And so we're in that 4th year of no general rate increase, because we know having a utility bill is a burden, and we wanted to make sure that we're making it as affordable as we possibly can. So next slide, please. So with that, then I just wanted to quickly talk through, we've done a lot in 2019. I mean, I'm telling you, it just to the far right there, we installed 500 megawatts. We've been working with the University of Nebraska Medical Center and installed solar on top of their buildings on their campus. So they've been a great partner, and vice versa there. And then our community solar, which was part of our stakeholder process and the power panel and so forth, we sold that out in 49 days. And that's unheard of in the country. In fact, there's some organizations that still haven't done that. So you'll see on the next slide that.
We lost you, Lisa.
Lost Lisa.
So I'll step in, and hopefully Lisa can get reconnected. It may just be like a low bandwidth. But can everybody continue to hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can step in too, Russ, if you'd like.
I'll leave it up to you, Mary.
So I think where Lisa was going is community solar selling out in 49 days. As she said, that was really unheard of. It was quite successful, and we're really proud of that we have customers that are supporting our solar efforts. Shoals Wind Farm came on. That was our most recent acquisition of wind. We also started our Power with Purpose, which you're going to hear a lot more about today, in terms of how that is really leading us into the future and changes that we're going to make across the board here at OPPD. And then we did put out solar requests for proposals in November of 2019, and we'll talk a lot more about those. We also did the Sarpy County Transmission Project, and that is in service. So lots of activity in 2019 leading us into 2020. Next slide, please. So in 2020, we've been working remotely, as we can all see today. We didn't get a chance to do this in person, and it's really been a different world, as we all know, with the COVID-19 coming in. We've done the best that we can to try to support not only our company. We have about 900 members of our family that are working from home, and that was really quite a change for us, as I'm sure it is for you and your congregation. We're really learning how to do this virtual meeting, and hopefully it's coming across well, and we're giving everyone the information that they need, but it is difficult. It just doesn't feel the same, and so we feel the pain of that and are looking forward to being a community again where we can get out and do things together. Fort Calhoun Community Solar did go operational earlier this year, and the solar proposals that we received from developers came in January, and I'll talk a lot more about Power with Purpose here in a few minutes. Next slide. Lisa, back on yet?
Not yet. She just
Okay.
texted me and said she's trying to right now.
Okay. Well, when she comes back on, I'll turn it. We do like to start with this slide because it really is a changing landscape for us in terms of our generation mix. We are focused specifically on carbon emissions and climate change. It has been a directive not only from the board of directors, but as Lisa and Russ talked a little bit about. We started in 2010, so we've been on this journey for a while. We do see the future role in the marketplace as converting to more renewables, but we know we don't have the technology to take us all the way there yet. And that's something that we're going to continue to work on. And that's why we have such a long-term goal, carbon neutral or net zero carbon by 2050. And we also have smart technology, and many of you may have heard of smart technology out there. Smart technology is really a way to better utilize the distribution network that we have, so that we can better interact with you, our customer owners, and really know what your needs are before you have any kind of issues where you have to call us. And so we're focused on this as to whether or not we can make that work. Did someone have a question? Okay. We do know that we have emerging sources of competition. As we just said, our customers are now starting to put solar on their rooftops, and they've become what we call prosumers, so producers and consumers of electricity. And it's something new for us in the industry, and we're learning to deal with that. And we really do want to be your partner in moving towards your own goals in terms of how you manage your homes and your businesses, and what you want from us as a utility. Electrification, we did do a little bit of work on electrification for vehicles. We did have some, what's the word I'm looking for, Russ?
Charging stations?
Well, we put in charging stations, but we also had rebates. That's the word
I'm sorry.
We also had electric car rebates that we were working with our customers on. And then just the evolving customer desires. We hear a lot from the customers that they do want us to move in this direction. And you all have great ideas. And so we're really trying to figure out those that we can move on more quickly and those that are going to take a longer period of time. Okay, Russ, next slide, please. So SD7, environmental stewardship, as Lisa spoke about, we do have strategic directives from our board of directors, and this is really them relaying to us what their goals and objectives are for the company as they see it from you, and they represent you. So Lisa, you're back. Would you like to take this over?
You know what? You're doing great. I'm at the office and I can't believe the internet went down. Can you believe it? So you go for it, girlfriend.
All right. I'll continue on. Environmental stewardship is an important part of our business. We do want to operate in an environmentally responsible manner, which is why you see us making so many changes since 2010. And that's been in our mission for a long time. We do have the goal to be net zero carbon by 2050, and that's not just our generating fleet. That includes our building services, our transportation fleet, and we want to be partners. We want to be that trusted energy partner, not only with you as customer owners, but also with the communities in which you live. And so we want to conduct all of our businesses in a way that meets not only the regulatory standards, but goes beyond that compliance where it's practical, and be really transparent about it. We just launched a new website last year. We're hoping that if you have a chance, you might go to that and take a look at it. There's a lot of new information in there, and Lisa, Russ, and Emily have been leaders in trying to get that out there for our customer owners. We also advocate and educate, and that's part of what we're doing today in terms of how we protect the environment and the things that we're doing to change our environmental footprint for the better into the future. Next, please, Russ. So really, what this is leading into is, what are the challenges that we have? What is the framework in which we work, and what are the solutions? And this is really getting to our Power with Purpose project. We started with the challenges, and we have a changing generation landscape. And I talked a little bit about prosumers, but we also have, as utilities, we see utilities around us in the Southwest Power Pool and the Midwest ISO, where they're shutting down a lot of coal-fired generation. And so there's less generation to lean on in the grid. And that affects us all. It's like a highway system. Everything is interconnected, and it doesn't have any boundaries. It doesn't know states from cities, from counties. All of those transmission lines that you see flowing, those electrons don't recognize any kind of boundaries. And so that changing generation affects us, whether it's somebody doing something on the west side or the east side of the Missouri River. We see the effect. We also have growing communities, and many of you know this. You probably live in a community where you see it growing. I live downtown. I see the construction all the time, but we have really fast growing communities. And as Lisa said earlier, we have an obligation to serve all customers who come into our service territory. So we have that obligation. And then we have to maintain reliability and resiliency of our system. And I'll just pause here a little bit to talk about the difference between reliability and resiliency, because it's important as we continue this conversation going forward. Reliability is really the ability for you to walk in, flip a switch, and know that you're going to have power. You have it day after day after day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. That's our goal for reliability, is that you never have an outage. Now we know you have them, and we try to get you back as quickly as possible. And so that's our commitment on reliability. But resiliency is something completely different. Resiliency is talking about those times when we have major upheavals, like the flooding of 2019 or the tornadoes in 2017. Those took out significant portions of our system, and yet we were able to maintain electricity to our customer owners to a great extent. And throughout the flood in 2019, we had no outages. We had a few with the tornadoes in 2017. But it's the resiliency of that system that allows us to do that. And so it is low probability but high impact events, weather events typically, that are really trying to address in the resiliency format. Our framework, as Lisa said, our mission, reliable, affordable, and environmentally sensitive energy services for you, our customer owners. Our strategic directives given to us by the board of directors, and then our legal and regulatory obligation, the obligation to serve to meet the requirements of the Southwest Power Pool in the market in which we operate. So the solution to that problem, because we have a growing community and we have to serve that load, was to go to the board of directors and request to build large utility scale solar with natural gas backup. And I'll get into a lot more detail about what that means. We also made a commitment to continue with our focus at North Omaha and to ensure that those units 1, 2, and 3 were retired, and that unit 4 and 5 were refueled to natural gas by the end of 2023. And then we utilize what's called voltage support devices, where we have a need in the grid where our voltage is not as strong as it needs to be. And so that really adds to the reliability and the resiliency of the grid. A part of the benefits that you see of this is when we look at our environmental footprint at North Omaha, by the reductions that we're talking about, we will cut the emissions at North Omaha by 80 to 90%. So you're on the screen, whatever you're doing, Russ, we're seeing Google screen. Thank you.
Oh, I am sorry. I thought it would just, sorry.
And over the course of the 2021, 2024, we'll have further reductions of about 30% overall in our fleet. And so all of this with no general rate increase through 2021 is our commitment to our customers. Next slide, please. There we go. So I'm really going to talk about our Power with Purpose project, which is 400 to 600 megawatts of solar, utility grade solar, and up to 600 megawatts of natural gas. And on the next slide, what you see is really, why do we need natural gas? We get that question a lot. And so we just start with that. Natural gas will, really provides a quick start capability when we have those weather events. When we talk about natural gas and peaking units, our peaking units only run 5 to 10% of the time. So on a hot summer day like today, you may see some of our peaking units starting up, but they really only run 5 to 10%. They're critically important during during those times in order to maintain the reliability and the resiliency of the system. The other thing that natural gas provides to us is really quick startup times. We can go from a signal to start up a unit typically within minutes, synchronizing onto the grid, and at full power within 20 minutes. If I do that with a coal-fired generation, it can take me up to 24 hours to be up to full load on a coal-fired station. So there's the difference. That reliability and that resiliency is critically important, and that really quick ramping and fast startup of a gas unit really provides to us the resiliency that we're going to need as we start to put more renewables onto our system. Next slide. So I want to talk a little bit about accredited capacity, and the only reason I want to talk about that is because one of the requirements in the Southwest Power Pool is not just to meet our growing load, but it's our growing load plus 12%. And so we have an obligation as part of that marketplace to be able to meet that. It really sets how much generation we need to have readily available to meet whatever requirements our customers have. It does support renewable generation, so you have a bit extra on there. So you see the intermittency of solar or wind, that really helps us with having that accredited capacity that has a little bit more. So if a cloud comes over on a nice sunny day and you see that generation go away on a solar, it'll help us kind of ride through that cloud going over those solar fields. It's cost effective. We said we want to maintain no rate increase, and we want to maintain affordable power bills for all of you. It really does complement what we're doing with our solar facilities. And then our solar facilities and the gas facilities are really cleaner energy and efficient fuel. So it is an important step on our journey to decarbonization. Next. So a little bit about solar. Solar arrays have been around for a while, but they're really getting technically much better than they had, especially in the last couple of years. And the cost of solar has gone down significantly over the past couple of years. So we've been watching this technology, waiting for it to get to a point where it made more sense to us. So right now, a solar field, as you know, has no operational waste, no water discharge, and no air emissions. They typically are a life cycle of 20 to 30 years, so they have a long life cycle, and they're put together in arrays. Decommissioning plans are required. The panels are recycled, and the site is restored back to its natural habitat. So lots of benefits on a solar facility. Next slide. What do they look like? If any of you have had an opportunity to see them, this should look familiar. They're typically about 18 to 24 inches off the ground, so about 2 feet, and about 10 feet tall when they're angled and they incline. And they typically track the sun. We use trackers on, at least we're proposing to use trackers on the facilities that we'd like to bring online here in the next, I don't know, probably a couple of years. The next slide, please, Russ. So really what we consider when we look at generation siting considerations, we look at the social benefits. How does it affect businesses? What businesses are in or around places of worship, commercial and industry, agriculture? We try to place them in areas where they're least invasive, but we need to be close to that load that I talked about, that growing load, because that really helps us to keep our costs down if we don't have to build long distance transmission lines, as well as gas pipelines if you have a gas facility. From an environmental perspective, we look at conservation areas, we look at federal land and state requirements. Floodplains, I can tell you in 2019 when we had the floods that affected not only Fort Calhoun, but our Nebraska City Station, it was really difficult for us to maintain power going to each and every one of you. We look at historic sites, we look at wooded areas, wetlands, and we looked at threatened and endangered species. So all of these things go into our considerations. And then from an engineering viewpoint, we look at where the airports are. We want to make sure that we're not going to be impeding anything in terms of air traffic, railroads, constructability, highways, structures, planning, and zoning. So we look at all of that. We also look at access to transmission. So the closer we are to our transmission, the better it's going to be, because it's easier for us to connect into that. So we take all of this into account as we look at siting new generation. I'll just pause there to see if there's any questions. Okay, next slide, please.
Yes. With the environmental ones, you may come to this later on. You're talking mainly about solar right now with the wind farms and bats. Are you going to talk about that later?
I can talk about wind farms, and maybe Russ can jump in here. Russ, you want to talk about the environmental issues around windmills?
I most definitely can, Mary. Thank you. So one of the things to understand is when it comes to the wind generation facilities, we actually contract with developers that build those wind facilities, and then contract with them for the energy that comes off of it, and then coordinate with them on the transmission and distribution that comes out of it. One of the things we did early on, so if you'll remember that timeline, back in the 2010 time period, our biggest contract at that point was for 60 megawatts of wind, and so that was the Flatwater wind farm. When we worked with that developer, the state of Nebraska didn't have a whole lot of experience working with wind developers, and there was a lot of uncertainty about both birds and bats as it relates to them. So thanks for the question on the bats. But one of the things that we did was we worked through a process with the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and helped them to evaluate what their bird protection and bat protection requirements were on that. We worked very, very closely with those developers while that process was being set up. And on those areas of land where they're going to install those types of generating facilities, a comprehensive survey must be conducted. So we would actually go out and look for bats, and actually try to identify if their habitat was anywhere near these areas, and so in an effort to try to avoid them. And there's also a lot of work that's being done right now on the acoustics as well, because bats use kind of a sonar type of biological technology, if you will, and so there's a lot of research has went into that, and those developers must demonstrate that they're going to adequately protect for those kinds of habitat, and not just with the bats. I would say it's also insects. There's some berriem beetles and other types of insects that are threatened or endangered in the state of Nebraska. We have to do comprehensive surveys for those, and then also be very attentive to birds and whether or not you have any bird kills that are associated with those types of generating facilities. All of that must be reported to the Nebraska Game and Parks and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife. So I guess what I'm trying to say is we stay up on the most recent research, the technologies that you can deploy to try to protect the bats and the birds. OPPD also has an avian protection plan that's out on our internet site that any of you can go to and review as well. It's a fairly comprehensive document. All of that was coordinated with Nebraska Game and Parks, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and the developers when we were looking at these kinds of generating facilities. I hope that answers your question.
I'll save the rest for the end.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Russ. I might also add that we have falcons at our North Omaha station, and they just had 3 babies that we've just named, so you can watch them live on our website. So if you'd like to go there and watch our falcons, you're welcome to do that. They're very entertaining. The slide that we have in front of us is what we've seen in terms of solar RFP responses, as well as natural gas backup locations. And we've shown this to show that the bidders that came in, the developers that came in, were really all across the state of Nebraska. It was a requirement that the solar come in as part of the state of Nebraska, but we also wanted it close to our load and in our service territory. So you can see there is a concentration of proposals on the east side of the state, which is really good for us and good for you as a customer owner. We also put in here these kind of pink or salmon colored counties, Sarpy County and Cass County, where we're proposing that we would have solar as well as our natural gas backup. And then Douglas County, where we would like to pursue a natural gas backup site. So we just wanted to give you a map to say, you know, our Power with Purpose project is moving forward. We're looking to acquire that 400 to 600 megawatts of solar so that we bring more renewable generation into our fleet. And we intend to back that up with natural gas so that we maintain the resiliency and the reliability of the system as we bring in those renewable generation through solar. Next slide, please. So Power with Purpose, that project is very specific to meet those goals and objectives and was really set up to meet that growing load that I talked about and that changing landscape. Pathways to Decarbonization is different. And I want to be clear about that. Pathways to Decarbonization is our long-term planning. Where are we going to go between now and 2050 to decarbonize our fleet? And so in the next slide, you can see here the board resolution. We are supposed to, under Directive 7, conduct all of our operations to meet these goals, engage our customers and owners. So we're doing that today. As a stakeholder, we're really happy to come and give talks on any subject that you'd like. And then we advocate and educate. So this is critically important for us. It's one of the things that we're very focused on. It is, as I said, a long-term goal. Next slide. So what does it mean to have actionable pathways? We'll go through this in a lot more detail here in the next few slides, but we're really looking at making carbon reductions in our generation fleet. The strategy is really to develop a roadmap that gets us from here to decarbonization, net zero carbon by 2050. And really look at our sustainable business practices and make sure that we bring those into effect as well over this time frame. Hopefully those will come sooner. The generation fleet is probably the longest component of this plan. And then customer demand. We want to make sure that we're meeting your requirements, what you need, what products do you need to decarbonize your footprint should you want to do that. We also want to meet with the community and be an industry leader in decarbonization efforts. And so I'll go into each one of these in a little more detail. Next slide, please. So we're really looking at 4 key components of our decarbonization study. And that is really our internal operations, our power generation, our customer products and services, and being a community partner. Next slide. I'm going to provide you with some detail on each one of these. So our decarbonization energy portfolio is really centered around decarbonizing our generation fleet. We will be doing modeling over the next year and a half to ensure that we understand what the pathway is and different pathways to get us from where we are today to being net zero carbon in our generation fleet by the year 2050. We have to look at a number of different things as we do this modeling. And so it's complex modeling that will take a significant amount of time. But what we're really doing is we're balancing the reduction of our emissions while maintaining that resiliency over a long period of time, while we're still managing that cost and making your energy affordable for you on your monthly bills. And so this one is really set up to look at our generation fleet. Next slide. Next, we have our internal operations. And in this one, we are really looking at how we can reduce our carbon footprint in our business. So how can we make reductions in our transportation fleet? How can we look at our different buildings that we have? How can we look at different things that we're doing in terms of our power plants and how we run those? So not the plant itself in terms of the way that it generates electricity, but the building itself. Are there things that we can do to reduce our carbon footprint and our emission sources within the buildings? And so this is really looking at a way to build and revise our current business processes to reflect our prioritization around the reducing carbon footprint. Next slide. And then we have a project manager who is also working on what we need to do to provide products and services to our customers. And really, what are your ideas about how we can provide those products to you? We want to meet your requirements. We want to be that trusted energy partner. And we want to make sure that we help you meet whatever decarbonization goals you have for yourselves, your homes, your businesses. And we want to do that at your pace. We want to accelerate it at your pace, and we want to slow down at your pace. We want to ensure that there's tracking and reporting of carbon reduction as a result of implementing these projects or products so that we know how we as a community are contributing to that overall goal. Next slide. And then in the community, Russ Baker, who is on the phone with us today or on the video, is leading that effort. And Russ is looking at how do we engage the community in this conversation? How do we be a leader and an educator and an advocator in the communities to really help start and guide the discussion about decarbonization for Omaha and for the 13 counties in which we serve? And so Russ is doing a great job bringing us to groups like yourself and really helping to get our story out there and helping to understand that this is something that we want to provide for the community going forward. As you know, Jeremy Bowers is on the Zoom with us as well. Jeremy, you want to wave at us? Jeremy brings all four of these components together. He's my program manager to make sure that all of these are being worked in a collaborative and collective manner so that we get the best overall strategies across all four of these different categories. And so he's really leading this entire effort for us. So thank you, Jeremy. We appreciate it. Next slide.
Hey, Mary, this is Lisa. I just want to add here too, you see the names on the right-hand side there and the resource summary. This is a major initiative across the entire district, and we are allocating resources to do this because we're not doing it little, we're going big. And so that's what is important so that you know that just like with Jeremy, we took him out of his other position and put him on this full time so that he can oversee it. And then Miss Emily Muth will be helping as well from a sustainability standpoint.
Yeah, if you didn't look at those earlier on, we probably have close to 70 people working on this, some full-time, some part-time, but it is a large project for us, and we are really dedicated to getting this done and understanding how it is that we can move the needle on our carbonization or our footprint, our environmental footprint within the community. Next slide. So a little bit about our milestones. Here we are today in the second quarter of 2020. We had charters approved. As you can see, each one of those 4 areas we had of a charter. We also have an overall charter that really guides Jeremy as he moves forward in this program. You can see that we have different targets set up for each one of these, whether it be internal operations, customers, community, stakeholder outreach, or our energy portfolio, and that we are tracking and monitoring our progress as we move forward. So we have a lot of work to get done between now and the end of 2021, but we have the right team to do it, and we're really focused on it. Next slide. I think this is where I'm going to turn it back over to Lisa to talk about her favorite subject, which is stakeholder engagement. So, I will pause and see if anybody has any questions for me before I turn it over to Lisa.
And we will have a Q&A session at the end. We allocated enough time for that as well. Okay, thank you, Miss Mary. Greatly appreciate it. I'm back. Like I said, the internet's back here at the office. So thank you for that. Mr. Baker, next slide, please. So as we said at the beginning, stakeholder engagement is extremely important to us and our board of directors as well. And in fact, we continue to figure out ways to benchmark and get our stakeholder process even more engaging than it has in the past. So over the last several weeks, we have been doing a soft launch in a new platform. It's a stakeholder engagement platform, and we've named it OPPD Community Connect. And it will be Omaha OPPD communityconnect.com, and it will go live July 1st. So you are the first organization to get to know about this and go out and test run it basically on July 1st. And I'll put that in the chat so that you have it. It's like I said, it's still in pilot mode right now until July 1st. It will say on there that, is this a reliable source? Go ahead and click on it. Our business technology group said it is safe, so it's not a scam. So but we wanted to have that extra step. So what we did was the team went out, and we're going to be the first electric utility to use it. And what's really been wonderful is it's been used in Australia. Communities use it like in Boulder on community events and so forth. And we're going to use this for our decarbonization and power with purpose. So it's going to be an interactive tool, as well as you can follow along with us. There'll be videos and so forth, and then polling, so that you can have, it's going to be an interactive conversation and so forth. So we're really excited about it. And I'm really excited for Sunday on July 1st for you guys to get to go out and test drive it as well and give us comments and so forth. So I challenge you to do that and send me a email with comments, lolson@oppd.com, and I'll put that in the chat as well. Next slide, please. So like I said, it's going to be a truly engagement tool that we can use more than just for a utility. So if there's conversations that need to be had in the community on other topics, diversity and inclusion, we may use this platform so that we can engage people. So we're going to be the first in the area in the region to use it as well. So we're excited. As you can tell, we take that engagement portion extremely, it's important to us, not just for your utility and so forth. Next slide, please. So with that, thank you. Greatly appreciate it. And I know that Julie Comstock, who's Vice President of Customer Service, has joined us as well. She hopped in at the beginning and so forth, because during the COVID, we have made sure that we really took care of the customers because we know these are difficult times for many people, and maybe including yourselves and so forth. So we wanted to make sure that, you know, from a disconnect standpoint and so forth, that we had empathy for people and so forth. So lots of different topics. In fact, when Scott reached out to us, I said we could talk about a lot of things. So this is just the beginning, and we'll be more than happy to come back multiple times. And I'm also going to ask Director and Chair Moody if you'd like to say a few comments.
Thank you, Lisa. No, I mean, you guys have done a wonderful job covering everything, as you always do. I guess all I would say, a couple things. One is thank you for inviting us. I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you to the OPPD team of people. We brought some heavy hitters today and lots of folks. So I appreciate all of you taking some time on Sunday to be here. As I dropped in the chat, you know, as a board member, one of the things that I am most focused on is getting our strategic directives right. If we as a board can learn from our constituents about the direction they want their utility to go, and then articulate those in strategic directives, those are the tools that we as a board have to provide that direction. So if and when you need to advocate, if and when you want to see your utility going in a particular direction, by all means contact me, and those strategic directives are the ways in which we look to kind of shift and point the organization just a little bit. I think we're going in all the right places right now. I've been on the board for a little over 4 years, and I think, like I said, I think we're pointing the right direction. I think we've got some really aggressive, meaningful, yet achievable goals out in front of us. I think we've got a phenomenal team that's just poised and chomping at the bit to do whatever they can to achieve them. And the other thing I would say is I think, when I reflect on the work that we're doing today, we are as busy as we've ever been. We have a lot going on, some of which is out of our control, COVID, flood, et cetera, et cetera. So you have a utility that's working its tail off for you right now. And like I said, I think we're pointing in the right direction, but again, there are always tweaks, there are always refinements, there are always things that we can do better. And I want to make sure that all of you know that you can contact me for any matter whatsoever as it relates to OPPD. I'll stop there. That's enough.
So you're ready for questions now, right?
We are.
We sure are, and I'm going to defer to Mr. Baker so that he could kind of help facilitate that as well.
Okay, Mr. Baker.
So I am looking to see who has a question. I don't see any that have come up through the chat that I've been looking at. So I would just
had her hand up again.
Well, I said I was going to wait till the end to follow up. But I actually had several. I know a friend of mine several years ago had installed solar panels at her home. This is a completely different question from my bat question. Had installed solar panels at her home and had to sign some form of affidavit about not returning it to the grid, which made it really weird to me about, you know, because I thought that was part of the reason you want to have solar power was to get the payback. And is OPPD now encouraging people to have home solar, or are you still competing with us, or what?
This is Julie Comstock, and I think I can probably respond to that, and others can chime in. So when we have customers, whether it's a residential or commercial customer that has distributed generation, whether it's solar or a diesel powered generator, they have to sign an interconnection agreement with us that basically indicates that and we have to come out and inspect to ensure that there's a safety disconnect, so that system isn't generating power that's flowing back onto the grid. So if the grid is, if we're working on the system and it's without power, we believe it's without power, but somebody has their own generation and it's back feeding in, it's very dangerous. So that's why they have to sign that.
I think that she did not understand that component of it and was interpreting it as she could buy power from you but not sell it back. And I was thinking, that really doesn't make sense.
Yeah, if they're a net metering customer, it does get credited back to them. So the other thing I would add is that we have just recently launched an improved website and a whole process around our distributed generation for customers when they do install their self-generation. It's a much more streamlined process for the contractors that they hire as well as for the customers. So I think that agreement is much better explained now than it probably was when she did it a couple years ago.
More than a couple years ago. So okay. I'm sure it's more streamlined now.
Yeah.
Thank you. Back to my bat question, and this actually came about from a talk by someone from Game and Parks. So I see the connection that Russ made earlier. And they were talking about not only the attraction that bats apparently have for the sound that the wind turbines make, but the fact that migrating bats that are moving across areas. So you've done your fabulous research of the area you plan to put it in, and then come fall, these bats are migrating through. And one of the approaches that had been proposed was to feather the vanes at dusk when the bats were migrating. And is that something that's being done? Is that something that only the developers of the wind farms themselves do and you have no control over? Or is it not something you're even worried about right now?
That's a great question, Judy. And what I would say is I think there's a lot of different approaches that are being taken to try and find out what would be effective in keeping, and it's, as I said before, it's more than the bats as well. You probably have more of a problem with the bats in the dusk, in the dawn, and then you have birds, mostly during the daytime hours. So there's a lot of different approaches to the technology. I have heard of doing the staggered wind vanes on the turbines themselves that they're trying to do. And in some cases, the technology is advanced enough where they can pick up a small object like a bat or a bird that's coming towards them, and they can actually try to turn them in time. Yeah, exactly, before it would interact. So I don't have an answer for how widely deployed that kind of technology is, but I do know in the state of Nebraska for sure, because if you think about it, over the sandhills is really the main superhighway of migratory birds that come up from all over into the south, and then head up into the Canada region, and then back after the warm weather season. So we're in an area where I think there's a lot of that different kind of research to try to determine what's the most effective. So again, I don't know the exact numbers on that, but I'm familiar with that technology. And we are looking at a lot of different approaches to try to minimize the impacts on birds and bats.
Have you people how have these programs been impacted by the pandemic?
So hopefully, I guess I will offer, hopefully not at all or minimal impacts. I think, the biggest challenge that we're having right now, and I can let Lisa, Mary, or Julie also chime in, is we really have a craving to go out and meet with people. We like to be in a room with people. We like to have a one-on-one discussion and be able to look you right in the eye. That it's difficult for us right now. And while I can see everybody that's on the Zoom meeting right now, it's still different, right? It's not the same as being in there in person. So I think communication in some ways has been a challenge, but I wouldn't say that we've let up on our ability to interact with anybody. And I'd turn it over to Mary, Lisa, or Julie to offer any.
Yeah, thank you, Russ. This is Lisa. Yeah, in fact, we were just getting ready to go out with our stakeholder process, in fact, for the Power with Purpose, and going through the 13 counties. And we had earmarked it, we had put it in the newspaper and so forth, and literally 2 days later, the COVID hit. And so we were able to switch gears, and we went to an online, it was really the state of the utility. But to be honest, people were concentrating on their family and friends and their health. And we were concentrating on keeping our employees healthy and so forth. So while I'm really proud of the team for that pivot, it was also, we wanted to make sure that we had the empathy for people and concentrated on how could we take care of people from a customer standpoint and keep the power on for them as well. But Russ is right. There is nothing better than sitting across the table and having a cup of coffee and just talking and that's who we are. And we're so authentic. And so we're hoping that we get back to that, but we're making do right now. As we said, we're doing this 7 days a week so that we keep connected with our customers. And Julie and her group with the customer service area, they're still there helping customers through all of this. So thank you for your patience and your grace during all of this.
Thank you very much for all of you showing up to it. It speaks volumes. Other questions?
Not seeing any more in the chat. Oh, Judy has one. I see Judy must have one.
I'm a questionful person.
That's fine.
You had all of your comparison slides for the percentage of reduction that you're dropping down by switching to natural gas. 80 to 90% is the goal there. What's your baseline? Was that 2010 levels or 2000?
It was 2010 levels is what we were using as the baseline from that.
Thank you.
That's correct, Judy.
Okay. Needless to say, I'm probably going to be reporting this to the master naturalists that we're doing great. And you guys are doing great.
Well, and Judy, I'd be remiss if I didn't add, you can go out to OPPD.com and look in the environment tab of OPPD.com. We actually have our emissions for carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxide, and mercury all out there on the web for anybody to review, annualized from 2010. Time period too, so you can go out and find that information as well.
And that's at OPPD.com, not the Connect one.
Correct. You are right. OPPD.com.
I might add to that, the reason we chose 2010 was because we brought Nebraska City online in 2009. So it does give a full complement of all of our generations. So it was important for us to start with that.
Right. And all 5 units at North Omaha were operating on coal as well. So it really, you know, once again, it really speaks to how far we've come in a relatively short amount of time.
And as you can see, we just put in the chat that for OPPD Community Connect is going to go live July 1st. So be sure to go out and test drive it and so forth. And there's going to be a long runway with that. And if there's no other questions, we will be glad to come back anytime on multiple topics and so forth. And we're just honored to be part of this. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. And I very much want to thank you for allowing us to record this, because I know that there are specifically some people who wanted to come to see this and weren't able to. And I know that there will be others. So our congregation is very interested in this work. So thank you very, very much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to join you.
Have a wonderful rest of your day. Blessed day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Deb.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Jones. Appreciate that.